The 1970s were a wild time for theme parks. No safety rails, minimal regulations, and thrills that pushed limits. Back then, rides weren't just fun, they were daring, sometimes even deadly. Let's dive into the most dangerous banned rides of the 70s that gave us chills, spills, and unforgettable stories. The Cannonball Loop, the infamous death slide. This water slide looked straight out of a cartoon, a steep drop followed by a full loop. Built with more courage than engineering know-how, this ride often left people stuck mid-loop or battered by the force of the drop. Rumors swirled about injuries and even deaths, leading to its quick closure. Do you remember hearing about this notorious attraction? Rotor rides, spinning danger zones. The rotor, a cylindrical ride where the floor dropped out as centrifugal force pinned you to the walls, was a staple of 70s theme parks. But with no seat belts and people sliding down the walls, it often ended with injuries. Did you ever dare to step into one of these spinning nightmares? Alpine slides, concrete thrills gone wrong. Alpine slides were essentially long concrete chutes with sleds controlled by a brake that rarely worked. Riders would careen down at terrifying speeds, often flying off the track. Scrapes, bruises, and broken bones were common, and some parks saw fatal accidents. Who remembers hearing warnings but riding anyway? By the way, if this wild trip down memory lane is making your heart race, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Let's explore more thrilling and nostalgic stories together. Fireball roller coaster, the wooden nightmare. The Fireball was a wooden coaster known for its terrifying speed and sharp turns. Wooden tracks would often warp, creating bumpy rides that could injure riders or derail the coaster. Despite the danger, it remained a crowd favorite until safety concerns shut it down. Did you ever brave the Fireball's shaky ride? Lupo Plane, the vomit-inducing egg beater. This ride was designed to flip you head over heels in a metal cage, resembling an egg beater. With minimal restraints and violent motions, it was a recipe for bruises, nausea, and more. Parks eventually replaced it with safer versions, but who else remembers being terrified and thrilled all at once? The Skyway, high-flying hazards. Cable cars offered breathtaking views of the park, but in the 70s, they were also high-flying death traps. Lacking modern safety measures, they occasionally derailed or stranded riders high above the ground. Who remembers the eerie sway of those cable cars on a windy day? Swinging pirate ships, unregulated and unpredictable. Pirate ship rides that swung back and forth were thrilling, until they swung too high. In the 70s, many of these rides lacked proper restraints, causing riders to lose their grip or even fall. Still, they remained popular, with kids daring each other to sit in the danger zone at the ends. Did you ever take that risk? Whirlwind carousels, spinning into chaos. These rides spun individual cars on an arm, often whipping riders at high speeds. The lack of secure harnesses meant many riders were thrown against the metal cages or even ejected. The bruises earned the ride a fitting nickname, the Pain Whirl. Do you remember your parents warning you about this one? Parachute drop, the plunge without a net. This ride simulated a parachute free fall, dropping riders from terrifying heights. With only a flimsy harness and minimal padding below, the experience was as risky as it was thrilling. One slip or faulty mechanism could mean disaster. Did you ever feel that stomach-lurching drop firsthand? The human catapult, short-lived and deadly. This experimental ride literally flung riders through the air onto a net or foam padding. Poor design and unpredictable launches meant injuries were inevitable, and its run was mercifully short. But for the daredevils who tried it, it was a story they never forgot. Would you have tried something this outrageous? The Tumblebug, Twisting Trouble. The Tumblebug was a circular ride where cars spun around a track at high speeds, tilting and bumping along the way. Lacking proper restraints, Riders often slid out of their seats or collided with each other. Do you remember holding on for dear life as it whipped around the curves? Water slides without guardrails. In the 70s, water slides were thrilling, but lacked basic safety features like guardrails. Riders would often fly off the sides, landing in bushes, concrete, or even shallow water. Despite the risk, kids couldn't resist the adrenaline rush. Did you ever hear someone scream as they flew off the slide? Gravitron, spinning to the extreme. The gravitron trapped riders against its walls with centrifugal force as the floor dropped out. While it seemed thrilling, dizziness, nausea, and even fainting were common outcomes. Some parks had to tone down its speed after too many accidents. Did you ever feel like you were spinning into another dimension? Log flumes without seatbelts. Log flume rides were popular water attractions, but in the 70s, they often lacked restraints. Riders would stand or lean out of their logs, leading to falls on steep drops or tight turns. Still, that splash at the end made it all seem worth it. Do you remember the mix of fear and fun? Ferris wheels with open seats. While Ferris wheels might seem tame today, in the 70s, many lacked secure doors or harnesses. Riders could easily stand or lean out, creating a recipe for accidents. The slow, creaky ascent only added to the suspense. Who else got nervous sitting at the top with no real safety barrier? The Looping Starship, a terrifying upside-down ride. This ride flipped passengers in a giant spaceship-shaped gondola, holding them upside down for agonizingly long seconds. Malfunctions often left riders stuck mid-loop, suspended, and terrified. Did you ever experience the stomach-churning moment when you realized you weren't coming down right away? Zip lines without safety harnesses. Some parks featured makeshift zip lines as an adventurous ride. Riders would grab a metal bar and glide down, often with minimal padding at the bottom. A slip of the hands or a misjudged landing could spell disaster. Who remembers trying to hold on as tight as possible? Bumper boats, the aquatic chaos machines. Bumper boats seemed like harmless fun, but in the 70s, they often lacked proper control mechanisms. Boats would collide violently, tipping riders into the water or injuring them on impact. Did you ever get soaked, or worse, during a chaotic round of bumper boating? The flying scooters. Dangerous control at your fingertips. Flying scooters let riders control the direction of their swinging car, often leading to high-speed collisions or near misses with other riders. The thrill of controlling your fate was matched only by the danger of oversteering. Who remembers the thrill of narrowly avoiding disaster? The haunted swing. Dizzying deception. The haunted swing seemed simple, but its illusion of flipping upside down left riders disoriented and often nauseated. Without seatbelts, it wasn't uncommon for people to fall out while trying to brace themselves. Did you ever walk away from one of these feeling more scared than you expected? The zipper. A cage of chaos. This ride trapped riders in small cages that flipped and spun uncontrollably as they traveled along a rotating arm. With little padding and jerky movements, it often left people bruised, or worse. Who else remembers screaming to stop but secretly loving the thrill? The Wild Mouse Coaster. Tiny tracks, big risks. The Wild Mouse Coaster featured small cars zooming around tight turns on narrow tracks. With minimal safety measures, riders often felt like they were about to fly off the edge. Did you ever cling to the sides of the car, wondering if you'd make it to the end? The slingshot, catapulting to chaos. The slingshot launched riders into the air with bungee cords, and while it promised excitement, faulty mechanics and miscalculations often led to injuries. The feeling of weightlessness was thrilling, until something went wrong. Did you ever hear the snap of those cords and wonder if you'd survive? Roller slides. Gravity gone wild. Roller slides, made of metal cylinders, allowed kids to zoom down at incredible speeds. But fingers and clothing often got caught between the rollers, leading to painful injuries. Did you ever race a friend down one of these only to end up with a bruised ego and a few scrapes? The swing carousel, flying too high. This classic ride let riders swing around in chairs suspended by chains. But in the 70s, many lacked safety checks, leading to chairs breaking off mid-swing. Did you ever feel like you were soaring a little too high and holding on for dear life? The drop tower, plunging to fear. Drop towers in the 70s didn't have the advanced brakes or harnesses we see today. Riders were hoisted high into the air and dropped suddenly, sometimes with jolting landings. Did your stomach ever drop faster than the ride? The Barrel of Fun, spinning inside a nightmare. This indoor ride had riders standing in a giant barrel that spun around at dizzying speeds. Centrifugal force kept you pinned to the walls, but it wasn't uncommon for people to lose their footing and tumble into others. Who remembers feeling like a human pinball inside one of these? The Scrambler, dizzying and dangerous. The Scrambler spun cars on rotating arms that moved unpredictably. In the 70s, these rides often lacked secure restraints, causing riders to slam into each other or get thrown around. Did you ever walk off the Scrambler feeling like you'd been through a tornado? The Speed Slide, no padding, all pain. Speed slides were built for one thing: pure adrenaline. Riders zoomed down steep inclines with no mats or safety guards, often landing hard at the bottom. The thrill was undeniable, but the bruises lasted for weeks. Did you ever hesitate at the top before taking the plunge? The Octopus, a spinning arm of doom. The Octopus ride featured arms that spun and lifted cars unpredictably. Without proper restraints, riders were often flung around inside the cars, and the jerky movements sometimes caused the arms to malfunction. Did you ever feel like you were on a real-life carnival monster? The 1970s weren't just about daring rides, they were about unforgettable experiences, even when things didn't go as planned. From the chaotic zipper to the bruising speed slide, these attractions pushed us to the edge, sometimes literally. What about you? Do you have a wild memory of riding one of these death-defying attractions? Share your story in the comments, and let's relive the danger and excitement together.